This is the second half of the Roger Hayes interview. We're going to be talking about him with a variety of issues. Roger, I'd like to start off with how your meeting went up in November.
Well, the annual conference was very, very successful. I think the important thing that we've all picked up is Middle Britain is there. We've got doctors, we've got people from the legal profession, we've got policemen there, we've got social workers there, we've got the painters and decorators, we've got people from the military. We've got such a wide segment of people now who are attending our conferences. It's telling us that the message is definitely getting out there. And obviously the support we're getting, the feedback we're getting is very, very positive. And I think that's the foundation on which we take forward the next initiatives, which as you probably know, includes the lawful bank, but it also includes what we're referring to as Magna Carta 2015, which will be a declaration of sovereign governance on June the 15th in 2015, because we have a right to govern ourselves, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
800 years.
800-year anniversary of Magna Carta.
So tell us more about Magna Carta 2015.
And the irony about all of this, isn't it, the 800th anniversary, which the government is actually celebrating at a time when our courts are referring to Magna Carta as an old document.
Well, that's what they do, everything. We're going to intervene in Libya for humanitarian reasons. We're going to kill women and children for humanitarian reasons. I'm not saying Colonel Gaddafi is good. I'm just saying that the choice that we had in this country was to interfere and remove a dictator. Gaddafi was a dictator, but of course, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. He was looking to open up his own currency with gold. Another world leader that wanted to issue his own currency, the banking cartel, I don't like. But that doesn't make him a good person. But the choice I'm making is this: whether you think Gaddafi was great or the most evil man in history, the choice the British taxpayer had was get involved, which will mean murdering some women and children, also means saving some, but it means murdering some as well, and pay for it, or don't get involved and have the money for schools and hospitals. And it turns out that it's estimated that the humanitarian bombing, as so it was called, was killing more people than Gaddafi. So we've got involved. We've killed more, and we've had to close down our schools and hospitals. I mean, the argument to the most sensible of people I can explain is, whether you think Gaddafi is good or not, let's not stick our nose in other people's business, whether it's for humanitarian reasons or not. While we're closing down our own schools and hospitals, it is ridiculous to say we don't have money for the local schools and hospitals, but we do have £1 million bomb that we can drop on people, whether they deserve to have bombs dropped on them or not. Let's spend it on life, not death. Let's spend it on schools and hospitals, not bombs.
I mean, we have a dictatorship in this country, don't we? But we wouldn't appreciate the Americans bombing us, would we?
No, but we have a three-party dictatorship. I mean, I've got I don't know whether I can say I've got a joke in my stand-up set about being done by a three-party dictatorship, but I don't think I can say it on air.
No, I don't think you should.
Next time I'm up north, or a gig up north, I have to get you along, get you free tickets, Roger. You can come along and you hear the joke. But I tell you what, Roger, I'm attacking all three parties. When I first started telling that joke, I thought, because you play to an audience, and so if you're up north, you tend to sort of take the mickey out the Tories or that kind of stuff. It's an old comic trick, if you're doing a joke about a victim of somewhere and you go and play a gig in that town, of course you change the victim list. You don't want to lose the audience. So my point is, when I was attacking all three parties, I thought that I would be alienating a fair bit of the audience because they would all subscribe to one of the three mainstream parties, Labour, Liberal or Tory. It's getting huge rounds of applause. People really are hating all three.
Oh, absolutely, and with a vengeance. And it's going to get, from their perspective, it's going to get worse and worse. From our perspective, it's going to get better and better. Because what we're now saying to people is that it's agenda politics, right? The three political parties are working to the same agenda. And, that this whole EU referendum is a classic part of that usual agenda politics, which is that the party that won't be in power or in office, as I prefer to call it, who won't be in office, right, are offering us a referendum.
I was going to talk to you about how that works because here's my take on it. I don't watch the mainstream media anymore. I don't really read the newspapers, and so critics of this show could say, As I say, I claim to know about news that isn't in the mainstream media, and I get it out there. People can say, well, how do you know what isn't on the media if you don't watch it? You can have a pretty rough guess. And what I would say on anything is, when you know something's plastered all over the mainstream media, it is part of the banking agenda. And we know that, back to which you referred earlier, we know that agenda is to bring about a one world government with as little local accountability as possible. We know that, don't we, Roger? That is the plan.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't know that, if your listeners haven't worked it out yet, then all you've got to do is go online and type in one world government, and you'll see the United Nations report on a 51-page report on world governance. Their target dates are slipping by, but I think this is 2025. It's all there for everyone to see. You've got members of Parliament who are members of the One World Governance, and it's all there in plain sight, as they say. So it's no secret. It's just that obviously the mainstream media, which is rapidly becoming not the mainstream media, because people are just waking up to the fact that they don't get the truth from the media anymore. Yeah. So people are getting the flavour of what's going on now from watching the other media, as it were, on the internet.
I think my listeners get it, but to anyone who's sending this message out to anyone who isn't awake, I would say this to them: you don't have to listen to anything about Bilderberg. You don't have to listen to Bohemian Grove. All you have to listen to is this following fact: you had your money taken away from you, 500 billion charged to the taxpayer, to be given to private banks. Private banks then lend it back to you at 42 billion a year interest in 2010. Roger says it's 50 billion 2011, 2012. I can well believe that. But it was 42 billion in 2010. That's in London Guardian. Now, think about the magnitude of that. And if you don't pay in your taxes, there'll be a bailiff or a court person and a jail cell with your name on it. So you have to give your money to someone who will then lend it back to you at private interest rates. What do you think is going to happen to an economy? That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a fact. That is all over the mainstream media. They call it a bank bailout. What it is theft, isn't it, Roger?
It is theft, and you don't even have to believe those of us who are suggesting there's a new world order coming down the road. You've just got to listen to some of the sort of mainstream charities who are saying exactly the same thing. I was amazed. This charity Oxfam came out last week and reported that the top 100 wealthy people in the world could solve the world debt.
Yeah,
I mean that tells you everything. You should read the report, the Oxfam report on world debt, and it goes on that report to sort of explain the numbers. Who owns the money, how much they own, and what you've got this phraseology isn't the rich get richer and the poor that get poorer. And when you understand what that means and how it's brought about, you can understand that it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Something's got to give. Yeah. And the reason it's like that is that it used to be that industry used to pay 70% of its money to the workers and 30% to investment. It's now the other way around. So less people employed on lower wages, most of the profits are going to the people with the money, and that, of course, is just an exponential curve, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they will continue to get richer and richer and richer until such times as there's a mechanism in place to solve that problem. There isn't a mechanism in place. However, the lawful bank does have a mechanism that it will introduce when it's up and running. But all things equal, they don't actually have any means by which they can stop the rot, and we need to actually wake up and realise where this is taking us unless we ourselves do something.
Well, there is throughout history a mechanism to bring about justice to events like this, but it involves peasants with flaming pitchforks surrounding people's houses at night. That's the way it ends. That's not what I'm calling for, but that's what happens historically, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, the French have done it their way. They tend to sort of, put people under the guillotine. The British have done it a different way by sort of forcing negotiation. That's what Magna Carta was, a forced negotiation. That's what the Bill of Rights and throughout history. I mean, Will Tyler unfortunately trusted them, and he lost his neck, didn't he? Mm. But But, you know, we are coming up for a rebellion, not revolution. I refer to it as a rebellion because it's a lawful opposition to the government, which is our entitlement. And I think that they are starting to get, I believe, sincerely, that they're getting very, very nervous. And I think what you're going to start seeing is a few moves by the courts, the governments, to give us something to try and keep us happy. But of course, we're not going to do the Will Tyler. We're going to get the whole thing sorted out to our total satisfaction, and that's why we're actually calling for constitutional conferences to put in writing exactly what we want, exactly what we're demanding before we will, you know, back down. So yeah, we're living in interesting times, and I think this year we'll see some significant happenings.
Just a couple of points I wanted to make on that. You mentioned rebellion rather than revolution. I saw on Facebook you've started up a new page. Do you want to tell people on that how they can get involved? It was Lawful Rebellion, wasn't it, Roger?
Well, I mean, obviously the Lawful Rebellion movement is what we've been promoting because A, it is lawful, and B, it's rebellion because we have a right to govern ourselves. That's the message. The Magna Carta 2015 is the agenda that we're sort of pushing at the moment, which is the constitutional conferences, and it's about explaining to people what our constitution is, what Magna Carta is, what our rights are. Because if you don't know what your rights are, how can you defend them?
Absolutely, education is the key to everything. But that's your Facebook page, isn't it? For people that wanted to join, it's called Lawful Rebellion, I believe.
Well, that's one of the Facebook pages. I mean, I think we've got a few there. I think it's hard keeping track of them, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
And there's people who are making Facebook pages all the time. And you know, it's interesting that if you go online and you type in Lawful Rebellion, there's millions of pages there. I mean, the thing is, I mean, you know that it's in people's minds because of the volume that's actually on the internet. So, I mean, I did this experiment because we've got, I did an article about legal fiction, put it on the internet, on Wikipedia, and I challenged the interpretation of obviously somebody in the legal profession, and it was immediately removed. Yeah. And why are they trying to do? They're claiming this is a load of nonsense, but they would say that, wouldn't they? Because it's their jobs were challenging, and yet here you've got 115 million pages that talks about, you know, the concepts of the legal fiction and so on and so forth. So we are making a massive difference, and they can't hold back the water in the dam with their fingers any longer, can they?
No, and speaking of having things taken down, a friend of mine, my former co-presenter when I first started the show, a friend of mine called Gary, he put up on his website the film Unlawful Killing. Have you seen that?
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's a fantastic film, and I can see why the British monarchy had it banned from Britain. To all the listeners, it is illegal for it to be posted on a British website. It is banned in Britain, and I will just say this. There's a reason the British establishment doesn't want you to watch that documentary. It is done by Keith Allen, you know, father of Lily Allen, famous actor, funded by Muhammad Al Fayed. So of course people say it's going to be biased. It's going to be biased. I tell you what really is biased is the fact that the main suspects in the Diana inquiry were the royal family, and it was tried in the royal courts of justice, and it goes down that road. I would advocate this. I'm not saying an opinion to any listeners. Go and watch the documentary if you can and make up your own mind. It is called Unlawful Killing. It is fantastic. What's your thoughts on that film, Roger?
Oh, well, yes, it's a must-watch, but yes. I'm going to give you something even better to watch.
Oh, please do.
Because this whole royal family question mark is now opening at all sides, and there's all sorts of claims. I mean, we've got young Prince Harry, and it's popular. We're going to say knowledge, but why should I be a propagandist? I mean, it's popular belief that his father was Hewitt. Yeah.
It is. Alleged, and it is certainly a joke that has been told on many a stand-up circuit, and the audiences laugh. Now, for the audience to laugh, it would lay a foundation to your claim that they have that knowledge. Yes.
So if there's an element of possible truth there, people can make up their own minds who's telling the truth.
Yeah.
Then if you want to look at a video, it's a 2-hour video. It's made by a New Zealander. He's a bit of a character, but the website is theworldoftruth.net.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman is called, I think it's Greg Hallett. It's Hallett. That's his name. So it's Hallett Report number 4. And he does 2 hours claiming lots of things going back in history as to who were royals, who weren't royals, what side of the bed who was born on, and so on and so forth. Well, I started listening to this, and I thought, well, this guy's a bit cracked. Mm-hmm. And then the more I listened to it, I thought, well, he's starting to make a bit more sense now. And by the time I'd finished listening to the Hallett Report number 4, I was thinking, oh, my goodness, that does explain a lot more than has ever been explained before. But what do we know? I mean, there's lots of rumours, there's lots of claims. All we can do is do our homework, do our research, and come to our own conclusions. So I strongly recommend, watch that video about, the Diane report, all of the idiosyncrasies in what was being said and what actually happened. And just exactly why they were trying to prevent certain information coming out. That's the first thing you ask.
Well, we can say that for an absolute certainty. We're not saying anything in the documentary is certain. I've certainly based my opinion. I think it makes a very good case. But what we can say for certain is that the establishment is blocking that film from coming out because my friend's got the email threatening legal action to prove it.
Right, okay. Yeah. So what have they got to hide then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a really interesting article. I've got the internet in front of me, so I'm going to see if I can bring it up. We've totally gone off onto different subjects now, but that's why I like talking to you, Roger. So I'm just going to read you this article from the Daily Mail and get your opinion on it. This is mainstream admitted news. You've got clips on YouTube of Prince Charles admitting that he was descended from Vlad Tepes, the character that Dracula was based on. And so here we are. This is from 21st of May 2011. It's by Fiona McRae. British royalty dined on human flesh. But don't worry, it was 300 years ago. They have long been famed for their love of lavish banquets and rich recipes, but what is less well known is that the British royals also had a taste for human flesh. A new book on medicinal cannibalism has revealed that possibly as recently as the end of the 18th century, British royalty swallowed parts of the human body. The author adds that this was not a practice reserved for monarchs, but was widespread among the well-to-do in Europe. Even as they denounced the barbaric cannibals of the New World, they applied, drank, or wore Egyptian mummy, ate human fat, bone, blood, brains, and skin. So we've got them admitting that they were doing one thing and preaching against the other, and that they used to eat human flesh. That's from the Daily Mail in 2011. Have you got any? I know it's a pretty random subject to throw out there, but I thought, seeing as we brought it up, what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me to comment about the royals eating flesh, I'm not going to say anything because there's all sorts of comical.
No, just about the fact that they did 300 years ago. They admit that they used to do it 300 years ago.
Gosh, I mean,
it's a bit odd, isn't it?
It's mind-boggling, and again, you can't believe everything you read in the press. But then, I'm beyond being surprised about anything these days. I think that you're told that your government is actually working against you, and they're deliberately, working with bankers to defraud you. It takes a long time to really come to grips with that. Yeah. But when the penny drops, you think, oh my goodness, this is appalling. And you can understand that a lot of these claims, people will say, oh, you're talking rubbish. It's nonsense. But of course, we're finding out that a lot of these claims are turning out to be the case.
Yeah. So, what was the website for people again? I haven't researched this, so I don't know if it's there.
It's worth a read. It's called theworldoftruth.net. and it is a forward slash, but they'll find the reports. It's the Hallett Report number 4, which I watched. But there is a book coming out, and it's called The Hidden King of England. And it directs itself towards the fact that Queen Victoria was married to the German King George V and had a son, and that was covered up, and she then married Eddie or Edward and had several children via him, and the claim, and this is where, you know, eating flesh is nothing on this one. The Rothschilds had breeding rights with Queen Victoria, allegedly.
Allegedly is the key word there, and the Rothschilds, of course, vastly influential oligarchs of the financial world, and people talk about the New World Order. People talk about the Bilderberg banking cartel, and so on and so forth. The head of the Bilderbergers are Rockefellers, and of course the Rothschilds bought out the Rockefellers only last year and have been doing business for a number of years. So they're definitely on the top list of the people to look out for. Let's bring this full circle then, using history to have a little bit of a crystal ball, if you like. In fact, actually, before we wrap it up, I just want to talk about that EU referendum thing that was on the news today. Doing a little bit of Sherlock Holmes, I can say that the facts are the end goal is one world government, and they want no national sovereignty. We know that. We also know that if something's pushed on the mainstream media, then they want you to know it. For example, your court cases are incredibly important to British law, but have never been put on any mainstream media, I think, apart from the BBC up north one time, wasn't it, Roger? Whatever if they don't want something out there, it doesn't get out there on the mainstream. We can agree on that. And if they do shove it down your throats to the mainstream media, then there's a reason for it. So using our deductive skills, this EU referendum, I would say, in my opinion, however this plays out, it will pursue the agenda of one world government. However this ends, it doesn't end for more sovereignty for Britain, like the mainstream media is making out that it could do, doesn't it? That's just not on their agenda, is it, Roger?
No, I mean, the real agenda is banking. They're not going to talk about that. The EU referendum is just a sop, usual tactic they use. I think it's already pre-planned that Miliband and Clegg will form a coalition, Labour and Lib Dems. Yep. I think the UKIP are going to sufficiently damage the Conservatives. Yep. Therefore, it's a safe bet for Cameron and the people who are pulling his strings to offer the referendum on the EU. Of course, Labour and the Lib Dems. Yeah. He
offered it last time and then changed his mind the moment he got
elected. Yeah, it's just a sop, isn't it? But the point is that, what they're going to say is, well, you had your opportunity to have a referendum. All you had to do was vote for the Conservatives.
Yeah, and so now we're going to assume you don't want one, and
exactly.
This is how it ends,
We're not stupid. We know exactly the game that's planned. Yeah. I don't even trust the polls. They're all rigged, and to be perfectly honest, I wouldn't mind betting that they've even got their hands in the voting booths as well.
Well, they certainly do in the States.
That's going on now. Yeah. Anything can happen, and I'm sorry, but call me a cynic. I don't trust them. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. The EU referendum by the Conservatives is a sop. It's a ploy. We're going to have a coalition between Labour and the Lib Dems, and they are the ones that won't promise, and of course they'll say, oh, well, you had your opportunity to have a referendum, you voted for the other party, so that's where that will go.
I don't call you a cynic, I call you factually accurate. There are many independent verifications that there were great election frauds, both in the Ron Paul nominations in Maine, Iowa, both in the anti-GMO Prop 37 in California, and the election itself. I mean, there were states and counties declaring for Obama before the votes had even been counted. That's on record. Check out Bev Harris, an independent researcher, very well respected in that, a number of independent researchers. So we can say this then, Roger, the Tories have come out, you will have an EU referendum. I'm right. For those that are awake, they're not they're not voting for any of the mainstream parties. They know that all three are owned by the Bilderbergers and the Rothschilds and all that kind of stuff, and the people behind it. At the very top, the bottom level, still some very good politicians out there, and those that I hope we're trying to reach. But the top level, there's a reason they all meet at the Bilderberg Group. There's a reason George Osborne attended as an official capacity as Chancellor of the Bilderberg Group with all the banking cartel in 2011 in Switzerland. So we know this. So they're going to say that when Labour and the Lib Dems get in, this is our crystal ball between us here. I think it's a safe bet to say they're going to say, well, we've got a mandate now to move forward in Europe because you had your opportunity and you didn't vote Tory. Or if through some sort of weirdness the Tories do win, then what I would say is they're going to do like a referendum in or out of Europe, and miraculously we'll find that the majority of people in this country want to be in Europe, and everyone in the streets will saying, I didn't vote for that, but they'll be saying, no, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And if anyone challenges it in a high court, they'll be told they're vexatious, Roger. That's what I think they'll find. Yeah. So we, however this goes,
vexatious voter because you never vote for the right party.
Yes, absolutely, a vexatious voter. In the end, I think that's what it's going to boil down to. I think voters being vexatious. So this EU referendum, all this talk today, it doesn't matter the games that they play. We've pulled out the two strategies of what happens. I think it's a safe bet that one of those two happens, and that we've got both bases covered. And the end goal is a loss of national sovereignty for the UK and greater powers to offshore bureaucrats in the EU. That's how this ends, one way or another, isn't it?
Well, that's how their story ends, and that's why we're creating our own agenda. And our own agenda is the Constitutional Convention, the Declaration of Sovereignty on the 15th of June 2015. We, the people, will govern ourselves because that's our right. And by that time, we'll have our bank fully fledged. We'll be flowing. We'll have our own currency in circulation. We will be with our own courts, with our own peace constables. So that's the direction that we're heading. So at some point in time, they're going to be telling, the people who are still voting for them what to do, but they won't be telling us what to do. And the reality of the situation is that once we have got the momentum, once we're actually getting the message out there, and we're getting it out there now, we believe there'll be a massive flood to us and to groups like us who are actually standing up for our own sovereignty and our rights.
Yes, well, that movement has been happening in America. I mean, huge revolutions are there. Now, what it took, I think, there was one of the key things was people hated Bush so much, and then Obama got in saying he was going to do the exact opposite, and he actually continued the Bush agenda. I think that's, from listening to the people that were awake in America, that was one of the things that woke the people up so much, plus the NDAA Act, plus the numerous dodgy things that have happened to it, such as 9/11, Sandy Hook. I mean, questions that don't have answers, and people are listening to the mainstream and thinking, actually, that's not what I saw, not what I heard. There was my point is, there's a mass waking up in America there. I mean, I speak to people.
That's why they want to disarm them. That's why all of a sudden you've got these murders of children in schools.
Yeah.
You've got people who are on computers. They've been indoctrinated. Those people have got out, and they've been switched on. They've gone out. They've killed children, and they're using that as a means by which they will disarm the American people, so that they can come up with an emergency and put in the military and close down the states. That's what's going to happen over there. So you watch. The one thing that you can watch about politics in America very, very soon is that they're going to disarm the American people.
And it's not going to work. There's going to be a civil... I mean, have you seen the county sheriffs? Have you seen the county judges? Have you seen the state senators and the governors saying, if the feds can't try and come in and take our people's guns, we will arrest them. Now, people say gun control, non-gun control, doesn't matter. America is not a democracy, it is a republic. It is a constitution which must be followed. If you don't like it, leave the country. That's how the constitution was written. It's not about democracy. You can't vote to change the constitution. And in fact, most people are voting not to. But even if you could, you can't. That's the way it is. And guns are a part of that. And guns are, whether you're pro-gun or not, guns are the Americans' rights, and the Americans' rights are in their constitution, and the constitution cannot be upheld, and anyone that cannot be overwritten, and any president that tries to will be impeached. And not only that, but it's not going to work. I mean, have you seen all these sheriffs saying if the feds come onto the land, it's going to be civil war? I mean, I played a clip on this show 6 months ago of warning exactly this was going to happen, long before Sandy Hook. And by the way, I'm going to do a show on Sandy Hook at some point, but what I like to do is let the dust settle, have a really good look, because at the moment there are lots of questions that need answers, and certainly the mainstream media isn't providing them, but I don't have those answers yet, and I never like to talk about something unless I've really got a good feel for it. But something doesn't smell right about Sandy Hook.
No, well, I mean, I think on the constitutional issue, two things. First and foremost, that the Patriot Act, of course, rides coach and horses through the American Constitution. Yes. They are already putting troops on the streets in America, 50 miles inland, so they're already starting to close down.
Yep.
They will make a couple of examples. They will take out a couple of high-profile individuals. They will remove sheriffs throughout the country. They'll make a few examples. Yep. They won't rest until they've secured that agenda. And in this country here, remember, part of our constitution is the right to bear arms, and that has been suppressed by our own courts as well. Yep. So you know, let's not underestimate. They are moving the agenda forward now, because it's a race for time.
Yes.
It's a case of how quickly we can wake people up,
yep,
or how quickly can they achieve their agenda of total control.
Yep.
And I believe that we're going to see a lot of, if you like, moves towards closing down our freedoms even faster than they have done
yep.
so far, because they're getting nervous.
Yep.
So we have got to play this game very, very carefully.
Yes.
And the game that we have got to play is educate the police,
yep.
start creating our own peace officers who will act as observers around the country. So they're going to turn up, they're going to observe, they're going to record, they're going to witness what goes on, and they're going to be there as our evidence, and also they're going to be able to inform the police of what's really happening. Slowly but surely, the police will go, ding, got it. And when they start understanding that they can't go around kicking our doors down and throwing us out of our own court cases, that's when the judges are going to get nervous.
Yep.
I'm predicting that this year we're going to have some victories in the courts,
yep.
the council tax issues,
yep.
and I believe we're going to start seeing some major moves towards jury trials, as opposed to these judges throwing people in prison. That's the big one.
Yep.
To stop them throwing people in prison without a jury trial. That's the one that we need to prosecute judges on. That's why my case is very, very important. My case is that man threw me in prison without a jury trial. That's against our Constitution. That's against the law. He is going to prison. And if our courts won't put him in prison, we will have our own court, we will have our own police constables, and we will arrest him, and we will put him in our own courts, our own prisons, and that's the way it's got to go if they don't back down and obey the people.
Absolutely. So let's wrap this up by making some more predictions for 2013, or general trends. I mean, I can start with mine. I think that you're going to see, we're already starting to see the mass awakening among the professionals in this country. I mean, you said the Constitution group, you've got a wide variety. I think you're going to see a mass awakening, because I would only still estimate people who are awake in this country. I mean, it was 1% a few years ago, and now it's about 5%. So we've got a 500% increase. So we should really be very positive about that. But I still only think about 5% of this country are really awake to what's going on. There's a lot of them still in the paradigm. Most people are aware that the Tories are owned by the banks, and at the type level, that's why they signed us onto the bank bailout and closed down all our schools and hospitals, and most people hate the Tories for that. But I still think people are actually thinking that Labour and the Lib Dems, or Labour or Miliband, is going to save them at the next election. That 2015, he'll get in and he's going to suddenly turn all this around. But let's look realistically. Ed Miliband is pro-bank bailout, so once you've signed on taxpayers to bankers that are too big to jail, you have a serious problem. And my point is, I think people are going to start to really awake when Ed Miliband comes on and continues this banking agenda. He's going to continue the march towards handing over our sovereign rights to unelected bureaucrats, be they EU or the UN. He's going to continue handing over taxpayers' money to the banks. He's going to continue to tax the middle class because they don't want people with time on their hands being able to rebel against the system. I think you're going to see a mass awakening in about 2015 when people, because by that point the recession will really be in full depression. It'll be obvious to everyone, and Miliband won't turn it around, and people will see, hey, we've actually been lied to, and the conspiracy, and I use the word theorists, were right. He is, all the three parties are owned by the bankers. We've got a real problem on our hand. So I predict some sort of real awakening in Britain in about 2016, but I think the real American revolution comes this year. I think they're going to have to fight for their arms, and fight they will. What do you think of those two predictions?
Yeah, I think you're on the ball there. I think you've got it right. I mean, we've seen it in the past. We've seen it now. We can almost predict the future accurately, can't we? We just know what the agenda is. And I think, the time frame is difficult for us to predict because, they are still in control of the media and the money, so they can manipulate things. I was of the opinion they were going to collapse the economy. I'm actually starting to change my mind on that, and I'll tell you why.
Please do, yeah.
I think that they know they're in the proverbial. And that if they collapse the economy, everyone will say, there we are, we told you so.
Yeah.
They know that if they keep people dumbed down and happy, they won't be as rebellious. So I think they're going to start feeding money into the economy, into the property market.
Yep.
We've already seen a sign of that with the farming banks, etc. The government set up this bank to its own bank. So they're going down that road that we're demanding, yeah? So I think they're going to start easing money out, keeping us happy, not collapse the market, and therefore, delay it a little bit longer. I think that's what's going to happen.
It's interesting you say that, because a few years ago, I remember having a conversation with another chap who was awake, and I was saying, if they're going to bring in all this agenda, I cannot believe that they're going to do it during a recession. You want people happy. You don't want people complaining. You don't want people out of work for time to have things. And you don't want making cutbacks in the police. You need to increase your police state. You don't want to cut back your police pensions. You want happy enforcers. This is this was I think a massive mistake. They should have brought in the police state. If I was the New World Order, this is how I would have done it. I would have really made people happy and prosperous, and then I would have done a false flag like 9/11, brought in a police state right away, and once you've got the police state in thing, but people have got lots of food on the table, they're happy, that's when you start to take the money away when they're already in their open prison jail cell. I think it's a massive mistake. That's how I would have done it. But these people are hubris. The joy for them, if you look at some of their history, they do enjoy. They seem to enjoy lying. David Icke talks about it. I don't agree with all of David Icke's, but he talks about they're obsessed with inversion. They have to lie. They have to do things on their head, and it's interesting. But it's interesting that you bring up that point, because there are a number of. I mean, for one, we've got the US dollar. We'll talk about this briefly, Roger. The US dollar, I believe it's Japan and China that have joined together to buy oil from Iraq in a world reserve currency other than the US dollar. I think that's something that's happened last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, and that's very significant, because the only reason the Americans can buy anything is because people need to buy US dollars to buy oil, because the US dollar was an oil-based currency. Yeah, it's no longer an oil-based currency, and that is going to put the Americans in a very, very invidious position of actually not being able to buy anything from anywhere, because the dollar is going to go down and down and down.
Yes,
but that again was part of the one world currency, the special drawing rights.
Yes.
It seems to have moved away from there. So it seems that there are factions happening behind the scenes that we're not altogether aware of.
Well,
so we can't speculate on things we don't know, because we're not in those rooms.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And your point about the New World Order beginning to panic and reverse plans. On next week's show, listeners, I will be showing a clip of Brzezinski saying exactly what Roger and I have just said there, that New World Order is in big trouble. So I'll be playing that clip for you next week, listeners. But it's interesting to bring back to the point. I've got great respect for Max Kaiser, Gerald Celente, Paul Craig Roberts. No one's perfect, but I have a great deal of respect for their opinions. And they're all predicting a crash of this year, and they're actually predicting a massive crash in Britain. And I think they were absolutely right to do so. But I'm with you. I don't think if they bring this crash in as planned, I don't think it's going to. They usually do the Argalian dialect, isn't it? Problem, reaction, solution. And you only cause the problem if you can control the reaction and therefore the solution. I don't think they can control the reaction or the solution. I think we've got loads of people who aren't awake already taking to the streets about hospitals closures, school closures, the removal of disability rights.
And the window tax now.
I haven't heard the window tax. Tell me about the window tax, Roger.
Oh gosh, if you live in a house and you're on benefits and you're on your own and you've got 2 bedrooms, you have to move. Otherwise, you lose 14% of your benefit. If you live in a house with 2 or 3 bedrooms, you lose 28% of your bedroom of your benefits. So if you're a single father and your daughter or your son comes to visit you, too bad. The problem with that as well is that if you have a separate dining room, the dining room is counted as a bedroom. So if you've got 2 bedrooms in a dining room, it's counted as 2 bedrooms extra, and you lose 28% of your benefits. So essentially that's going to put people on the streets. But don't worry, because the charities will be there, the New World Order charities will be there to help you. and that is, of course, part of the agenda, is pushing people back hundreds and hundreds of years, so we're basically being looked after by, the old workhouses. You remember the old workhouses?
The old workhouses where, British Constitution and Magna Carta applies. Of course you've got your civil rights, but if you don't like what we say, we're going to fire you and then you die from starvation.
Yep.
I know, I hadn't heard about that window tax. So I agree with you. I sense that they're not going to actually pull the trigger on this economic crash quite like we thought they were going to. I think we're going to be living in fascinating times. But isn't that a wonderful sign that we're having such an effect? And really, to quote a phrase, we have not yet even begun to fight.
Exactly, and as long as we get it right, and we're very conscious of what we've got to do, it's got to be peaceful. We've got to do our homework, educate people, move forward slowly, carefully, and as long as we keep our eye on the ball, in other words, we don't start rioting in the streets, there's not a lot they can do. The only thing they can do, of course, is bring out their chemical warfare, and there's nothing we can do about that, because when that happens, we are all in deep trouble, aren't we?
Yes. It's interesting. I've always said, grand picture, this ends in one of 3 ways. You look at history for this reason. One, it ends with the people beginning to take back their politicians. So whatever people's views on UKIP or Respect or party or anything like that, people will start to vote for non-mainstream parties. Either as a protest vote. I don't think that the awake people certainly don't go down the road of the BNP because they know racial divide is a divide and conquer strategy. They're going to go for UKIP, they're going to go for the Respect Party, they're going to go for the Green Party, possibly. Awake people aren't going to agree with the global warming thing, but you get where I'm going with this. They're going to go with non-mainstream parties, and they're going to start to cause havoc at the political and legal level like you are doing so. And we bring about change that way, because there are loads of people who aren't awake and they never vote anyway. They don't understand what the puppet show is. They couldn't tell you who the Prime Minister or Chancellor is. They don't even understand the puppet show, so you've got no chance of getting them to understand who's pulling the strings. But people who do understand the puppet show, you can point out to them, this is a puppet show. You don't get a vote from any 3 parties on the EU. You don't get a vote from any 3 parties on whether you want to join the bank bailout. You don't get any vote from 3 parties on whether you want to participate in quantitative easing or preemptive wars. It is a 3-party dictatorship. Those are people you can get through to, and they're going to start to vote for parties outside the dictatorship. You could get change there. That's route number 1. Route number 2 will be people taking to the streets, and it will be just like it happened with the poll tax. People will say, "Oh, they're talking about doing this," and people say, "Oh, it will never happen. It will never happen. It will never." I remember being a kid and listening to people, "Oh, they never do that. There'll be riots on the streets." Well, they did it, and there were riots on the streets, and it got reversed. Same thing here. They'll never bring in the one world government. They'll never bring in taxation to that degree. You know, blah 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 blah. They've done it. We riot. We take it back, and this time the awake community will really root and purify that corrupt people out to its core. It won't just stop at the poll tax or the new equivalent of it. It will go right to the core. The third way is, they'll release a bioweapon. And when I say they, the banking mafia cartel. I mean, they've got all these things locked away. In fact, they won't just release it. They'll put a very high level. They've got airborne Ebola, for example. I mean, all this stuff was researched. It's on record by the military. It wasn't researched by Public Health Department. Well, someone said to me once, when has the military ever developed a weapon that they haven't ended up using at some point, at least once? And they've developed all these viruses. And so what it will be is, it will probably be someone like a Roger Hayes or a Jim Grant will be plastered on the news as a terrorist saying, this person wanted to stop the one world government, and as a result he thought the only way, being a conspiracy theorist lunatic, was to release this virus and kill the whole humanity. So they couldn't get in their one world government. But that'll be how it is, when really, of course, it will be, some military operative or private consultant, Blackwater, somebody like that, brought in, or they've changed their name now, haven't they, or for some reason, releasing this virus, and we get the Patriot movement, as it's called, the freedom lovers, the people that want their habeas corpus rights back will get the blame for it, So I think it ends in one of those three ways. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, get the old crystal ball out. There's something else that may actually happen, and if you follow the money, when you explain the money to people, they get it straight away. Yeah. When they get it straight away, they immediately attach themselves to the people who are promoting the alternatives. Yeah. Yeah. So I believe potentially what will happen is that we will overwhelm them. Yeah. Because once you get the money thing, the rest of it falls into place. Yeah. Because the question people say is, why were the government doing that? Yeah. And they answer that question. You don't have to convince them. They answer that question themselves. They say, it's because they're all corrupt. Yes. Therefore, no, we're not going to vote. That message will go into the pubs, the hairdressers, in the supermarkets, in the fruit stalls. It'll go like wildfire. Once people start to understand the money, and they're starting to understand it now, they understand immediately that the whole political setup is corrupt, and I believe that they will just get swamped. Yep. So I think, and remember, I believe that will take the police with us as well. Yes. So they're going to be left defenseless. So the only question then is, what do we do when the court cases are finished? Do we put them in prison or do we hang them? Oh, yeah. I think with option 2, where there's riots on the streets, I think the police will join with us. The good police will. The ones that want to be control freaks, the ones that really... Well, they're going to be the younger ones, less experienced, and I think they're going to find themselves outnumbered by the great number of decent police officers we have. Even they're affected. And, there comes a time you think, when you know you're in the wrong and you're going to lose, you tend to quickly change sides. So, yeah. It'd be a Ceausescu job in Romania, and it's interesting. Throughout history, if you look at the fall of Cuba, they were still partying up until the rebels were at the gate. They were when Castro took over. I'm not saying Castro's a good person. I'm giving you an example that all the people were in their dinner and ball gowns. In denial. Yeah, that is complete denial. True. They will not negotiate because they won't realise that they've lost the game. It'll just happen. And people will arrive at their doorsteps and they'll think the police are outside to protect them, and then they'll realise that the police are outside to arrest them. Yep. I think that's exactly the way it's going to go. Roger, it's been marvellous chatting to you for a whole hour and a half. Is there anything else you want to add? Any websites you want to plug? Well, obviously, if people want to help, if people do care about their country and freedom, etc., join the British Constitution Group. We are thebcgroup.org.uk. That would be enormously helpful. sign up to thelawfulbank.com, because again, that's the solution to the problem, is the money. If anybody sort of wants to contact me, they can do it through the BC group. And, donations are always welcome, both to me and also to you, no doubt.
Well, I've actually just started up my website, and we've got some sponsorship advertising there. I can't obviously get sponsorship for this radio show because it's all done for charity. All the proceeds of this network goes to the Oyster Group and all the great charity causes they do. But you can sponsor me personally. Yeah, give me your money. So, and if you don't, I can't come to your house and enforce a taxpayer warrant against it, put you in jail, and then give the money to the bank. So if you want to sponsor this broadcast but give money to Roger, please do so. If not, that's fine. We realise that every penny counts, but what I want more than your money, listeners, is for you to listen to what I say. If there's anything you don't believe, look it up, see that it's accurate, or if it's inaccurate, send me an email at beyondthenews.co.uk@gmail.com and we can have a chat about it. But once you see it's accurate, please tell others, because all the money in the world, once we can get this message out and wake people up, we can build a better world where money doesn't have the value that it does now, and where we put much more emphasis on human life and quality of life. What do you think, Roger?
Absolutely, I think that's the message, isn't it? Wake up, folks! You owe it to yourselves and your fellow countrymen, and the world. You owe it to the world. Put it like that.
Yeah, once we can get rid of these people, Roger. Once you go down this road of what you think, Nikola Tesla's designs from 100 years ago are still being suppressed. So you can have all these different energy options. You're going to have money issued. You're going to go back to the basic rates of taxation. People are going to have a lot more money. I've done the numbers. We can demonstrate now how interest on money actually adds 50% to the cost of everything, including houses. So if we just simply change the monetary system, we could work 3.5 days a week. The production would not drop. We would produce what we needed. We wouldn't be producing just to pay the interest. The world would change overnight. That's how important the money is. It would change all of our lives literally overnight. And I think we owe it to ourselves to understand the money. We owe it to ourselves to do a little bit of homework. And if we all do that and then spread the word, it'll happen quickly. Marvellous. Well, Roger, thank you for all your work. I'd love to get you back on the show last Wednesday in February, and now we're up and running again. Love to get you back last Wednesday of every month for a chat. We haven't had a chat for a while, so I think we've gone on for about an hour and a half now. But yeah, if we could get you on for sort of 45 minutes last Wednesday of the month, if you can, that would be great. Would you be up for that?
Always good to talk to you, Jim.
Yeah. Thank you ever so much for your work. So your website again, Roger, just give it a quick plug.
It's the bcgroup.org.uk.
bcgroup.org.uk. Please support Roger.
And lawfulbank.com.
And lawfulbank.com. Roger, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you here this evening. Hopefully chat to you in a month, and thank you ever so much for joining us here this evening.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for having me.
Cheers, mate. Goodbye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Listeners, I'll just switch off the Skype here. I said during this show that next week I was going to play a broadcast of that chap Brzezinski saying about how the New World Order was in trouble. Well, I think with only a few minutes left, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that clip for you now, and then on next week's show I'm going to have clips from Lord Monckton of the UK Independence Party. I'm going to have clips from Max Kaiser talking about the crash that he believes is going to happen this year. I certainly have a great deal of respect for Max Kaiser's forecasts, but I'm definitely got one foot in the Roger Hayes camp of saying I don't think they've got the balls to do it now. I don't, and that is a testament to how we've got the message out there. It really is. What else should I play next week? Well, that's what we've got coming out next week. But right now, I think we're going to go and have a listen to Brzezinski. Now, you can have a look on beyondthenews.co.uk, check the link for yourself, check the link on Facebook, but have a look at this guy's books, because he's a member of Council on Foreign Relations, and he says that he is the person that created Al-Qaeda to fight in Afghanistan. And it's very interesting what this bloke has to say, this guy. So here's his speech there. And this is how we're going to our last clip of tonight's show. And so we'll listen to the clip and then I'll wrap the show up.
Alex Jones here with some incredibly positive news. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who is a top globalist advisor to David Rockefeller as well as the House of Rothschild, recently gave a speech in Poland where he told the global elite that the entire world population is waking up to the external New World Order. And he went on to even say that political awakening and nationalism and resistance is threatening their takeover of society. The full speech is posted in an article at Infowars.com by Paul Watson. Brzezinski, Populist Resistance. Speech in Poland, former U.S. National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski warned fellow elitists that worldwide resistance, that's a quote, movement, to external control driven by populist activism is threatening to derail the move towards a new world order. Now, before we show the clip, remember Hillary Clinton said the same thing a few years ago, that they're losing the info war.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war. I'll be very blunt in my assessment.
No, the U.S. isn't losing the info war. The foreign mega banks that brag that they've hijacked our federal government, they're beginning to lose the info war. Worldwide, the free peoples of this planet are discovering the private, corporate, fascistic world government that poses as a liberal socialism, and they are waking up to it and resisting it. Here is a short excerpt from Brzezinski's speech.
In recent decades, worldwide social change has experienced unprecedented historical acceleration, particularly because instant mass communications, such as radio, television, and the internet, cumulatively have been stimulating a universal awakening of mass political consciousness. Persistent and highly motivated populist resistance of politically awakened and historically resentful peoples to external control has proven to be increasingly difficult to suppress.
2 years previous, he made similar comments to the Council on Foreign Relations of Canada.
That for the first time in all of human history, mankind is politically awakened. That's a
very interesting statement, is it? First time in human history. Not first time in this administration or first time in 10 years. First time in all of human history. It makes you think about the works of David Icke, doesn't it? I don't necessarily agree with it. Here's the thing with Icke. He says that you can trace the genealogy of most of the presidents and most of the prime ministers, most presidents of the US, most prime ministers of the UK, to the royal family of the Rothschilds, and that they are a reptilian-style bloodline. Now I go, whoa, 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 whoa. You can trace the lineage of the US presidents and prime ministers to the House of Rothschild and our royal family. You can stop it there. Right there, there's something you need to concern about, because well, people are cousins, you can trace anyone. Well, I'll tell you what, there's been genealogy studies done, and I'll bring them up for you in this show, that prove, yes, that is correct. The vast majority are connected. The presidents and the prime ministers, the royal families, and the Rothschilds are connected, and that the people that lost the elections weren't. So the argument that everyone's related if you go back further enough doesn't hold merit. You don't really need to know whether they're humans, reptilians, smurfs. It doesn't matter. I don't care. All that you need to be aware of is that the people that continually win our so-called democratic elections all seem to be pally and have from the same bloodlines. That is all I'm interested about, and it's interesting, and I say it on that because Brzezinski says the first time in human history. That's a very interesting. It implies that these people have been in power for quite some time. It doesn't prove it, but it implies it. Let's listen to that again. Let's listen to that bit just again. Let's see if I can get the clip right.
That for the first time in all of human history.
All of human history. I find that interesting, and it does add weight to Icke's claims of the ruling elite being from certain families and having ruled for quite some time. Again, I don't touch the reptile thing. I don't need to. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. The fact that you've got a ruling elite throughout human history is enough for me to be concerned. I don't care what blood runs through their veins.
mankind is politically awakened. That's a total new reality. And no matter where you go, politics is a matter of social engagement, and most people know what is generally going on in the world, and are consciously aware of global iniquities, inequalities, lack of respect, exploitation.
Brzezinski's new book that came out earlier this year gets into more detail, where he hits the panic button to the elite controllers and tells them they had better wake up and understand humanity is awake and staring. So this is some more positive news. Now, normally I don't just believe something Brzezinski's saying in a speech, but I, from my own research, know that what he's saying is accurate, and many globalist white papers that are not meant for public reading but are available are raising the same alarm.
This man, Brzezinski, was the former National Security Advisor between 1977 and 1981, still a member of the Council of Foreign Relations.
The British Constitution, join the revolution, lawful rebellion, our right. The British Constitution, we stand for a future we control. Our heritage lies in free men's souls. We fight to conquer Britain's foes. The British Constitution, the British Constitution.